Welcome to Walkouts and Knockouts, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Johnathan, aka Three Piece Combo, and today I'm joined by my boy, Goated Marino, Mr. Andy Romero. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, brother. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We just did our fantasy draft, so for anybody who wonders, Andy takes forever to draft every one of his picks. He has to take
Yo,
5 minutes to.
right before I'm about to pick, they always pick my guys, man. So I don't know. That pissed me off, man.
I saw it happening the entire time. I think it was for you and for Raj. He was having a tough time getting who he wanted as well. But good draft, man, and good weekend overall. We had a phenomenal UFC card. It was a card that wasn't really as hyped up because there was a little bit of controversy with the interim title. Obviously, the co-main event with Amanda Nunes fell out. The Sean Brady fight, I think, was on that. The Kevin Lee Sean Brady fight was on there, I believe. That fell out
Yeah,
as well. So lost a couple of fights, but it ended up being a really good. Cyril Gane ended up showing out. Derek Lewis was a no-show. Jose Aldo looks like he's back in prime form. Vicente Luque looked like he's ready for a title shot now, man. So a lot to go over there. And let's get started with that main event. Cyril Gane just decimating Derek Lewis, and it really wasn't even close. So I want to talk to you about what he did inside the octagon because he essentially neutralized Derek Lewis with his movement and his footwork. What do you see as far as his game plan goes for Cyril Gane?
man. It's one of those things where you going into the fight, you knew who was the more skilled guy, who had the likely chance of winning. We were all just waiting for that one shot, just like against Blades. Lewis was just there, pending, and then there, one punch, he's out. You didn't. There was nothing to wait for there. So that was the only chance he really had. Gane did a masterful job. You know, poking from the outside, kicks, side kicks. The teep kicks, and his jabs and his entries. He made sure he was never in position to get damaged. He was never in position to get knocked out. He was a masterclass. It was honestly like I know some people think his style was boring, it's methodical, but really it's like the highest level of martial arts when you really look into it, especially for heavyweight. I don't think we've ever seen a heavyweight so agile and just so masterful with his technique. Usually it's been brute force, brute power. Maybe Stipe has been one of the few ones that has technique. And Gone, he's gonna be one of those top guys. He decimated Lewis. Lewis will be around, but I don't know. Lewis really didn't look very good at all against this opponent.
Yeah, it was a really tough showing for Lewis, and like you said, I think it was all in credit due to Cyril Gane. His movement neutralized the power of Lewis. Every time Lewis wanted to load up that right hand, Gane was out of the way, or he was throwing a leg kick, or he was throwing just any type of kick, a stomp on top of the thigh to slow down Derek Lewis. So it was just really hard for Derek Lewis to go, and like you said, it was a masterclass, and we haven't seen a guy move like this. Cain Velasquez had good movement to get inside. You know what I mean? And like you said, Stipe was probably the best moving heavyweight, especially when he lost a little bit of weight. We saw him move pretty well in that rematch against DC, especially in the later rounds. But for somebody to switch stances, throw kicks, just get in and out, we haven't seen this before in heavyweight. So it's a new breed, and it's really really interesting because man, it's just it's an interesting matchup now for Francis Ngannou. So I want to get into that a little bit. That's going to be a much more interesting matchup because Ngannou is not somebody who will just sit there and wait like Darius Lewis will. He'll go out there and he'll chase that knockout. What do you think as far as the Cyril Gane versus Francis Ngannou unification bout? Who do you think gets that done?
That's such a tough thing to predict right now. You know, if we look at Lewis and say he has that one punch knockout power, Ngannou is just on that next level. Ngannou is more physically imposing. He's longer, he's quicker. So I still do believe Gane will have his same strategy like he's always had these last 4 or 5 fights, the same one he imposed against Lewis. However, I don't know if it's going to be exactly as effective because Ngannou is more durable. Ngannou can do a couple more things, especially now what we saw against Stipe this a couple months ago. He was able to defend those takedowns very, very well. If he can stay in the range that he needs to stay in, it just takes one swing. It doesn't even have to be a proper technique. Like what he did against Rosenstrike. He just swung at him, bang. and it's gone. You know,
All it takes is one, and he could swing 15 and be miss 14 of those shots. All it takes is one for him to actually knock you out.
100%, man. Like it's really exciting because you look at those two, and those are two definitely that's the pinnacle heavyweight right now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Those are the two of the most talented, physically imposing guys you're going to see a heavyweight now and for quite a while. Maybe if John Jones comes in one day, whenever that happens. But that's a really exciting matchup. I'm really hoping it happens, but before the end of this year.
What do you think gets it done?
Yeah, if you got to put me on the spot, I got to go with Ngannou, man. There's just it could be 4 rounds of whoop ass, and then boom, fifth round KO. You know what I'm saying? I gotta go with him. We were talking about that with Derrick Lewis. We were like, hey, it could be 4 rounds of him getting whooped, and you never know when it's coming. So you gotta go with that.
Yeah, definitely got to give the advantage to the champ there. But even if he doesn't get it done, I wanted to get into this topic a little bit. Gane is very young. He's only 10 fights into his professional career, and for him to be this advanced at his age, just to be able to do things that other heavyweights haven't been able to do, we're seeing something that's a different generation now. And for him, heavyweights have a really long longevity because their power tends to translate well over time, but it's going to be really interesting to see how the speed of Cyril Gane will last over time. And I want to get into one of these comments. My boy Alex M saying Gane takes it. That's an interesting take, but I can definitely see it going. But I can see it both ways. I can see him doing what he did to Derrick Lewis. I mean, there was times where he ran against Derrick Lewis, but it was the right thing to do. I would run against Derrick Lewis. I mean, if I'm in a 25-foot octagon, you ask me to last 25 minutes, I'm running in circles and hoping that guy gets tired. Um, Best for working heavyweight. I agree with you. I don't think we
100%.
can doubt that.
100%.
I'm right there with you. So getting into this one, I do feel like he's going to be a perennial contender because, like we said, the longevity of a heavyweight is so long, and this guy has about another 8 to 10 years left on his heavyweight
At
career.
least.
Like how I want my boy Elder Assassin. You showed up to I think the last one. I appreciate you hopping in. Still down. What happened to lose? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there was a typo there. That's my bad. Stipe versus Gane is more competitive. That'd be good. But I do
Definitely.
think the power of Francis. That's another level, man. That's another
That's that
level. And
game
him.
changer.
What's up?
That's that game changer, man.
That exactly. Oh, still down. What happened to Lewis? Well, actually, I think that's what he's saying. Still down on what happened to Lewis. Yes, I
Mm.
am still down on what happened to Lewis too. Very sad about that. Man,
Especially in his hometown, man. Like,
yeah, and in his hometown. And the reason I have a little bit of an affinity for Derek Lewis is because actually the Khabib versus McGregor fight was like the weekend after my birthday. So I did something for my birthday where it was the first time I actually invited everybody over for the fight. So we played flag football and then we all watched the fight. And it was the Volkov versus Derek Lewis matchup.
oh,
And that was the one where Volkov was piecing up Derek Lewis the entire time. And the commentary was talking about all it takes is one from Derek Lewis. All it takes is one from Derek Lewis. And obviously, we're all talking, laughing about the commentary because Derek Lewis is just sitting there waiting to use his lunchbox hands. And then he pulls it off, man. And he pulls it out of his hat. That was probably the craziest thing I've seen happen live. That was obviously just a little over exaggeration, but that was crazy.
but it was nuts.
This is
And
a
it was
really
similar to
good
what we
point.
just saw.
Go ahead.
No, it was nuts. It was similar to what we just saw. You know, he was getting whooped completely, outclassed. The length was bothering him, and then bang, like you said, his lunchbox hands threw him out there. We were. I was really waiting for that on this one. It didn't happen, but he's had a career just doing that, of just coming out in the end.
He's had a career getting up from takedowns the most unconventional ways and not getting choked out either. But Alex, you make a really good point saying he had that frozen moment that Woodley went through that many times. Absolutely, man. You saw for the tail end of Woodley's career, except for the fight against Luque, he was just not throwing that power hand at all. He was waiting, and it just wasn't working for him. So sucks for Derek Lewis. I hope he'll stay there. I think he'll stay in the top 5. He has that knockout power.
Definitely.
But I think unless Francis Ngannou loses, you don't see him in a title shot. You know what I mean? Because it would be, or I would, sorry, unless Cyril Gane loses, you don't see him in a title shot because you know what happens with him against Cyril Gane, but you can still put him in a matchup. Him versus John Jones is a money match. Him versus Francis Ngannou,
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's a money match anymore because obviously the first one was a very slow fight, and we saw
Mhm.
how how Lewis was this fight. So I'm not sure how Francis Ngannou 2 versus or Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis 2 would go. But hey, Derek Lewis versus John Jones, that's a money fight. If John Jones gets his hand around that heavyweight belt, that's a fun fight to make. And I do think Gane is
100%.
going to be there for a long time. Gane versus Francis in France. That would be
That's the way to
great.
go.
The only reason you probably can is because the COVID shit going on right now. So they want that fight to happen before the end of the year or early next year. Not sure. Hopefully, I would love for that to happen. That'd be pretty dope there.
Yeah, that would be
So
beautiful. Both guys that have their roots down there.
yeah,
That would be nice
exactly.
to have.
Right. The way that Francis Ngannou had to fight, and I'm not sure if you ever listened to his podcast with Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
how he took just the traveling to go through deserts and getting kicked out of the country and being left for dead and then actually getting into there. So him getting and making it to France and actually getting in a gym and becoming a world champion. Like what a success story, man. What a success story it is for him. Jones versus Stipe in a heavyweight tournament. Jones, I think recently or today, I believe John Jones said that he doesn't want to fight Stipe.
That was so disappointing to hear, man. That's a perfect fight. Like obviously, right now he's not getting that title shot. Like, you get the opportunity to go against the best heavyweight in history right now. It would have been the best heavyweight versus the best light heavyweight. That's like that you could headline a pay-per-view with that, and you will get buys through the roof. So I'm really disappointed that his management said they don't want that fight. I don't know what he wants. I don't know what he wants. If he's just waiting for the dust to settle, Gone in Francis, and he's gonna go straight to the champ. He deserves it. You can't say he doesn't deserve to get a title shot right away. But I want to see this one day. One day while Stipe's still in his prime, man. That
And
would be a heck of a fight.
the thing with that too is that John Jones and DC hates each other. If John Jones goes out there and kicks Stipe Miocic ass, the guy who put DC, on the losing end of the time, times during the trilogy, that's just better for John Jones. That's gonna make him look a
Yeah.
lot better as well. So let's get into this. Who do you think Lewis fights next?
It's tough. It's tough to say. I think the only guy in the top five, not even top five, top 10 that he hasn't gone against yet is Rosenstrike. He knocked out Volkov, knocked out Blades. He hasn't gone against Stipe, but I think Stipe is gonna stay in that no more contenders match or title match conversation. I guess how I it would make sense would be a Lewis versus Rosenstrike, or if John Jones changes his mind against not having just a title shot, I would love, like you said earlier, a John Jones versus Derek Lewis. Introduce him against one of the biggest, baddest heavyweights in history, man. That'd be a great fight. I think Rosenstrike or Jones, those fit in really well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That the Rosenstrike fight would be good because it would offer the upside for Rosenstrike to get back into the title picture as well.
Hmm.
And to your point with John Jones, man, that's just a money matchup because Lewis versus Tuivasa, I think that's Tuivasa is too low in the rankings for that. I think he's too low in the rankings because he just be who he just be Greg Hardy, who's an unranked guy.
Yeah.
So it's hard for him to get that fight next. Elder Assassin saying Rosenstrike. I'm right there with you. I think Rosenstrike is the next matchup, and that's a pretty fun matchup as well because Rosenstrike has that kickboxing ability. He's not somebody who will just sit around there. He'll actually touch you, with some low leg kicks. He'll hit you with the jab, but is him overextending himself going to put himself at risk for one of those shots from Derek Lewis? He doesn't have the movement. He has movement. He has good movement, but he
Hmm.
doesn't have the same movement that Cyril Gane has. And if he's in the range of Derek Lewis and Lewis lets one go and it hits him, that's it. That's all it takes for him. So
Yeah.
I think that would be a good matchup. I think Derek Lewis versus Rosenstrike is the next matchup to make. Let's get to this co-main event. Jose Aldo kicking Pedro Munoz's ass. He
That
looked
was
like he was
beautiful.
back to me. I got one question for you. Is Jose Aldo back?
Hey, Jose Aldo's back, and I don't think he ever left, man. He's had some tough moments in his career, some decisions that I don't necessarily agree with, primarily the one against Marlon Morales. I think he won that fight. But Jose looked like himself. Jose was free. He was loose. He looks better than he's ever looked in his entire career. He's making that one last push for a title shot. He couldn't get it done against Jan. not many have in history.
Right.
Jan, I think he's only has one loss. So he's making that one last push, and I can't wait to see where he goes next, man.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's hard to say that he was gone anywhere because, like you said, I 100% believe he won that fight against Marlon Moraes. That fight against Peter Yan, it could have gotten stopped a lot earlier, and it would have made him look a lot less bad. Right?
That
He
was
was
a
just
terribly late stoppage. It hurt me to watch. Like I was watching with family. I'm like, yo, what is this guy waiting for? Stop the match. Like, what are you doing?
probably the worst stoppage that I've seen live. One of the worst that I've seen live, and it was also on the Apex as well. So he heard everything. So
Yeah,
that was a rough spot for Jose Aldo there. But I do think, man, he looked phenomenal tonight. I think the weight cut, he's starting to mold into 135 better. This is somebody who you was once touted as the greatest featherweight of all time. And now he's getting comfortable at 135. And we saw at the beginning of the third round what he's able to do when he starts letting go. He let out a 6 or 7 piece combination with some low kicks in between, and he was starting to throw those combinations heavy. And he was checking all of the leg kicks of Pedro Munoz. He was doing everything right defensively. I think that's what really impressed me most was how great he was defensively. And Alex M saying Peter Yan dynasty. We're split. We have a couple people on the network that love Peter Yan and think that he's going to win again and beat Dillashaw. We have some people that think it's a little bit 50-50. I think he's a underrated, not underrated, underappreciated talent at 135. I think he's somebody that could be, leave a really good legacy. Because imagine if he didn't throw that knee against Aljamain. He's still the champ, right? He's probably fighting Dillashaw next or Sanhagen. Probably have fought Sanhagen already. We don't know how that fight would have won. Hey, 135 is just a bloodbath, man. So it's hard
it
to
is,
say
man.
how that would go anyways. But let's get to one of the matchups that could possibly happen. TJ Dillashaw came and he won against Sanhagen. It was a split decision. He said he's open to fighting one more. Maybe, that's not a title shot next. Jose Aldo against TJ Dillashaw. How does that matchup go?
That's two legends. That's two legends fighting each other. That would be beautiful to see. I think, especially this version of Aldo we're seeing rejuvenated, it would be an amazing matchup. We know Aldo's has one of the best takedown defenses in featherweight history. And now we're going to see it in bantamweight. Dillashaw, we saw in this last fight, he's able to mold from a brawler to a wrestler and mix it in between. So that would be a great matchup. Two guys, two legendary guys, man. Two top guys in each of their respective divisions. And if I had to lean one place in that one, I think I would lean Aldo just because I know he would neutralize any takedown threat from TJ from what we've seen historically. I would probably lean Aldo. I'll probably lean Aldo, chopping out those legs, getting those body shots, those combinations. I would lean Aldo on that one. It'll be just like Dillashaw and Sanhagen. It would be a 5 round war. Nowhere other place to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the harder matchups to predict because the in and out movement of TJ Dillashaw. I'm not sure if something happened to his knee. Actually, something did happen to his knee during camp, and he didn't pull out a
Yeah,
fight. I think that's what the story about his knee was that happened. But we saw after the second round, he wasn't quite moving as well as he was in the first round. But with his in and out ability, does that neutralize a little bit of the explosive damage that Aldo can deliver? That's a question to be answered right there. I do think, as far as the takedown goes, he can neutralize him. But does the power of 135, or sorry, somebody like TJ Dillashaw, who's no way ever going to make 145, somebody who's a true bantamweight, going up against somebody who Jose Aldo does, when he explodes in and hits him, is Jose Aldo going to feel that power, or is he gonna, is it going to be okay there? So, man, I'm having a really tough time thinking about this one. Alex, I'm saying him choosing to fight Aldo is a downgrade. He's just waiting for the chip. Um,
as he
he said
should.
he was open to one more. So we're just building off that. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
and that's a great matchup as well. You have two former champions going at it, right? That's a amazing fight night waiting to happen. But I mean, honestly, I'm with you. If I'm TJ Dillashaw, I'm waiting for the title shot. Like, why take that extra risk? But that's just me.
exactly.
So I feel you on that.
Learn from Sanhagen's mistake. Just wait for the
Exactly.
title shot, man.
If you have
I,
it, just
I
wait
I'm
for it.
feeling for him because that was a close decision, man. Like it could have gone either way.
Yeah, not sure if I agree with that one. Still, not sure. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Aldo with you. I wanted to say TJ Dillashaw just to play devil's advocate, but I'm gonna stick with you. I think Jose Aldo. We saw tonight his speed at 135 being maximized, and I think that's what we'll see in the future. Let's talk about a particular matchup that could happen next. If not TJ Dillashaw, maybe the guy that lost to TJ Dillashaw, to Corey Sandhagen. I think that's a much more interesting matchup. Alex M saying he got TJ if he fights Aldo. Let me know why. Let me know why. Let me know in the
Yeah.
comments. Let me get to this one though, Andy. How do you feel the matchup against Corey Sandhagen would go? Somebody who's longer, a little more lengthier, has a lot more head kick kind of heavy, not necessarily leg kicks, but how do you think that goes?
You see, that's one you hit the point right on the head on that one. The length is gonna hinder Aldo a little bit in his entries. He's had struggles against people longer than him in the past. For example, against Max Holloway, the length would help Corey. Corey's explosive in his own right. He could hit you in all sorts of angles everywhere. Like we saw what he did. That was such a beautiful movement, a scramble against the first round against Sanhagen, where he almost got him in that
Oh,
triangle.
the
Oh,
inverted
what was it?
triangle.
The
The
inverted
inverted
triangle.
triangle.
Oh my god. Oh. Yeah, dropped
We
the
got
boy
it
right there.
live.
That it was amazing. I thought he was gonna sub him right there. So he's very unique. He has so many different ways of attacking you. He would give Aldo trouble in that situation due to the length, due to all the different entries he can give him. I think he would get the better of Aldo, possibly even knocking him out. Corey is
Yeah.
just that great.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Alex, I'm saying the cardio. I would agree with you a year ago, but I think the cardio that we saw from Aldo in this fight is a next level type shit. And we got to remember, this man has years of championship experience.
Yeah.
If you can translate that to bantamweight, and he has 5 round experience, I think that cardio is going to be matched with TJ Dillashaw. And TJ doesn't have the power like Peter Yan does, so it's not like he's going to put him down as well. So I do think. I do think that's a lot more of a wash, just like Bam and Daniel Tice. But as far as this matchup with Corey Sandhagen and Jose Aldo, I feel like Aldo is at a little bit of a disadvantage here because of the range as well, right? He doesn't have even we got to think about even with the movement and the clinch ability of TJ Dillashaw, he was still able to get it to a close decision. With somebody who's not able to get him in the clinch, somebody who's able to or not able to get inside, maybe. I think the length, like we talked about, of Sandhagen is going to be a little bit tough for Aldo. So if I'm going to go with that one, I do think Sandhagen takes that. Let's get to a quick prediction real quick. Aldo is 34 years old, I think.
34,
You know that off the
35,
top
yeah,
of your head?
33 or 34.
Let's look it up real
I
quick.
believe he was younger than someone else that was like, what? He's younger than this guy? I think it's like 34, yeah.
Wow. His birthday is coming up in 1 month. Okay. So he's 34. He's going to be 35 next month. Will we ever see gold around Jose Aldo Jr.'s waist once again?
Man, like we said earlier, bantamweight is a slaughterhouse right now. Like you start putting up the matchups, Aldo versus Sanhagen versus John, even versus Sterling or Rob Font. All of those are such tough matches for anybody, not just for Aldo. I don't know. We'll see him win a championship title match again, but I think we'll definitely see him in a championship title match, if you know what I mean. It's just all about matchups and getting a lucky break. Any of these top five matchups could go left or right. So I wouldn't put down on Aldo being a champion again, but he's definitely gonna give anybody a run for the money at 135.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. He can hang with the best of them. You put him in a championship fight and it will still be close. I would say no. If I had to take a guess, I would say no. I think the waters are too shark infested, and I think the sharks are too young. I think the younger sharks at 135 are going to get the best of them, and by the time he's going to get a shot will be about another year from now. He'll almost be 36. He can still put up great fights, but as far as him just edging someone out, I think it would be really hard for him to get gold around his waist. Although it'd be great for a fill-in for a chip like Bisping. Yeah, exactly. You can exactly
Definitely.
have that same type of situation would work out perfectly for him. Let's talk about somebody else who's a little more younger, or a little more young. I think that's the right way to say it. but he's also getting into title contention now as well. He was in the co-main event. Vicente Luque, the silent assassin. This man subbed a submission artist. This is gave me shades of Anthony Fluffy Vieira or Anthony Hernandez submitting Fluffy Vieira. He was submitted Michael Chiesa, which is, in my opinion, a little more impressive because of Chiesa's submission game, but he pulled it off. He got it done with a Darce choke. He's only 29 years old. Let's get to it before we break down the matchup if it does happen. Is he a future champion? He has a submission game. I mean, we've seen the knockout power. He's done godly things to people's faces. He moved Mike Perry's nose to like 6 inches left of the equator. He just done some pretty horrible things, and he has a great submission game as well. He choked out, like we saw Chiesa, choked out. Who did he fight last? Woodley, I believe, was the last person he fought.
Woodley, yeah, we think of the punches, but he choked him out at the end.
So it's all there, man. It's all there. He's only 29 years old. Let's say Usman retires in 2 or 3 years. He's still only be 32, 33 years old. He's still going to be in his prime. Alex, I'm saying he's a gatekeeper. I don't think you could say somebody who's 14-2 in her last. I'm not sure if it's 14-2 or like 12-2 in his last 14 fights. A gatekeeper. His only 2 losses right now, recently or over the last however long, are Wonderboy Thompson and Leon Edwards. So I mean, that's hard to say you're a gatekeeper at that point. He beat the gatekeeper in Tyron Woodley. He beat somebody, Michael Chiesa, who was another quote unquote gatekeeper, somebody who hasn't broken through to the title shot just yet. Let's get your point. Luque versus Masvidal. Feed that to me all fucking
Beautiful.
day. I love that. Dude. I would love that fight. What are your thoughts, Andy, man? Do you feel like he has the potential to be a future champion?
That I don't like that Usman matchup at all. I gained a lot of respect for Usman after he knocked out Masvidal. It took me long enough, but when you see your favorite guy just get knocked like he's never been ever in his life, like it. I'm not a hater. I had to admit, hey, yo, this guy's a beast. This guy's a savage. He could do it all. I don't like that Usman matchup. If you're saying like it might happen, he retires in 2 or 3 years. Maybe before those 2 or 3 years are up, Vicente matches up with Usman. But I think he will be a future champ unless he has to go through Usman. If he doesn't have to go through Usman, I like his chances against Colby, against Gilbert, against Leon. Like, he could give anybody a run for the money. Anybody. Like, we've seen, he's so multifaceted on offensively, defensively. He doesn't put himself in danger. His only recent losses have been decisions. He's very durable. He's gone through longer, taller opponents like Randy Brown. He's gone through all of them. He's gone through all types of opponents. That Darce choke, you pointed it out. You pointed it out before the match. That Darce choke is so nasty. He looks like a crocodile when he flips that thing in there.
Because and that Luque roll, man.
That Luque roll, man. And seeing him do it against someone like Chiesa, like I thought Chiesa had him with the rear naked. I thought it was gone right there. And then when
I was about to cry.
Transition, when he was hitting with those transitions and he got him, I said, "Geez, Louise, this guy's legit." You're doing that against a top jiu-jitsu practitioner, man, a top wrestler, and you beat him in his own game. You beat him on the ground. Luque is gonna be a top 5, top 3 guy in welterweight for a couple years to come, man. He's gonna be one of those guys. When George retires in a couple years, Thompson retires in a couple years, he's gonna be in that top 3, top 5 for sure.
He's absolutely right there, and I mean, I'm looking at his track record right now. He lost tough, right? He lost in his UFC, The Ultimate Fighter. I think he was a part of The Ultimate Fighter Brazil, but he won 4 in a row, right? He won against Hader Hassan, another guy who's great, Bilal Muhammad, right? He lost the decision to Leon Edwards, came back, beat Nico Price, beat Jalen Turner, beat Brian Barberena, beat Mike Perry, lost to Stephen Thompson, beat Nico Price again, beat Randy Brown, and now getting into the elite of welterweight, he beat, elite, quote unquote, Tyron Woodley, and now Michael Chiesa. So this guy has had phenomenal fights on his resume, and even losing to, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, which was 2 years ago, right? That's a loss 2 years. I was on the Masvidal versus Diaz card. That was one of the first. That's how crazy. And then Leon Edwards, obviously that dude's a monster. Him subbing Chiesa should have upgraded the Luque belt. I agree, but I do think he's a black belt, but I could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know he's a great submission artist. I think he's a future champ, man. I think he has all the tools. I think he matches up against Usman, and we'll get to this right now. A lot of people don't want to give him the credit as far as, being on the ground game, but the reason that Usman wasn't going to the ground with somebody like Gilbert Burns is because of submission. But the reason he didn't do it against Jorge Masvidal was to prove a point. So the stand-up game of Usman has become on another level. But Luque has never been finished, right? This is a guy who's never been finished. This is a guy who's incredibly durable. If you haven't watched it yet, I urge you guys to go watch his match against Brian Barberena. Barberena was not going down, and he was giving Luque everything back, and he ended up winning that fight at the end. So that's one of my favorite fights all time to watch. Want to see him fight against higher level competition? That's a good point too. And actually, we'll talk about some of the matchups that can be made at the top of 135. But let's get to this fight. If it does happen, he called out Usman. He said he's a fresh challenger. If Usman gets past Covington, how do you feel like the matchup against Luque would go?
I think Usman would, man, Usman has just showed us he's very durable himself. He's faced adversity, almost getting knocked down for the first time and within like the first 30 seconds against Burns, comes back, knocks him out in the second. He's shown has every quality you need in a champion. So against Vicente Luque, it's not gonna be any different. I think Vicente can get the upper hand on the feet. He definitely can. Although Usman has improved, Usman is still Burns. I think Usman avoided the ground because he trained with Burns every single day, like you mentioned. He knew what to avoid. Against Luque, Usman will be comfortable anywhere where it goes. Like Alex just mentioned, you put it up there. He's a hard riddle to solve, man. It's tough for me to envision Luque getting a KO or a sub on Usman because we've only seen him get subbed once in his career. I don't think he's ever been knocked out. I gotta go. I gotta go with history. I gotta go with one of the top pound for pound guys in the world right now. Who probably should be number one pound per pound if the rankings were fair. I gotta
Yeah.
go with Usman right now.
Yeah, I think he's the best pound for pound fighter. I think number 2 is probably Adesanya. Number 3, Amanda Nunes. Number 4, Charles Oliveira. So they have the rankings. Let's
I
see.
might put Poirier over Rivera, even though Rivera's a champ. I
Fair
like
point.
Poirier.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was just thinking champion, so that's what I was
Yeah,
going by. But I do think he can get on top of Luque, and he can just dominate him, make the fight boring. So I do think that's
yeah.
a
He
way
could
he can
clinch him
go.
up and then imagine.
And he's a big welterweight.
He's
He's
a
a
huge
huge
welterweight.
welterweight. This man probably weighs 210 pounds when he's walking around normally. He cuts down to
Seriously.
170 pounds and swells back up to 200 pounds again. So it's a tough one, but don't get me wrong. I think Luque, if anybody has the tools to do it in the top of the division, we saw Gilbert Burns almost be able to do it. I think Luque is that other guy that can almost do it as well. He has a submission game, right? So even when he's on his back, Usman, like you said, he'll have to make it boring. He won't be able to get on ground and pound, and I think it'll be really hard to get that. And actually, that's a good point for Alex. We need a Dagestani welterweight. That would be true. We don't have any Dagestanis in welterweight. I'm not coming up yet.
I don't
Maybe I
know.
think there's some in
I
Bellator, but
know.
I don't think there's any in UFC for welterweight.
I know there's a couple 155ers, but I don't know if the
Hmm.
UFC right now that are unranked. I don't think there's any 170s.
Yeah, they're all a little bit lighter. They're a little bit lighter, or they probably can just cut down from 180 to 145.
Yeah, like
They have that
Mousasi, he's a
that
huge
discipline,
boy.
man.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think Luque has a decent shot, man. I think he has a better shot than most as far as how that one goes. Any final thoughts on this UFC card, man? Because it was a pretty good one. It was a lot of fun. Had some flying knees, lots of spinning shit. You know.
Man, I think it's one of those like we always say, the card doesn't look like an A+ card, but then the fights are. So if I had to rank it like 1 through 10, I would definitely give it like an 8. Had some decision fights that were very very exciting all the way through. Yadong versus Casey, for example, was one of those that through and through was exciting. Oh, if I have to grade it A through F, I'd give it a B.
Yeah.
B
Yeah.
plus, B plus. I don't want
B
to give it
plus.
that A
Right.
yet.
Right.
But there were so many exciting fights on this card. That you mentioned the flying knee, Cape. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right.
Minel Cop. Yeah.
Finally, Cup. There you go. He finally broke through. He needed that. He needed that knockout so badly. He finally broke through and got that KO, man. Over, not a great opponent. It wasn't one of those top five, top three guys that he's gone against already, but he just broke through. He got over the hump. So I'm very happy for him. And we saw that masterclass from Cyril Dong. Cyril Gane did what we kind of expected him to do. So it was a wonderful class. Oh my God, I'm forgetting my favorite fight of the card. Fiziev versus Green.
Yes.
What
Thank
a
you.
gosh
Thank
darn
you.
war, man.
You can curse. We're not
I
sponsored.
100%, 100%, 2-1 for Fiziev. But bro, Green is as tough as they come. He's one of those guys that no matter what he's ranked, no matter how old he is, no matter who he's lost to, you want to see him fight, man.
Yeah.
Puts up excellent fights. That third round was nice. Great third round from him. And Fiziev, he needs to work on that gas tank. Every time he makes it to that third round, he starts slowing down a little bit. It's not terrible like what we've seen from other fighters, but he starts slowing down in that third round. He needs to work on that. He's a beast, though. An amazing fight, an amazing card. I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alex, I'm saying Fiziev looking like a contender. As long as he gets that cardio up, man, I'm right there with you. Main card disappointed. I can't really say that. I was upset about Lewis losing, but the main event was good, right? Cyril Gane did what he had to. The co-main, Aldo showed out.
Yeah.
Luque winning was the highlight of my night because he's one of my favorite fighters, and I was about to cry because he was about to get choked out. So he ended up winning. Tisha Torres won against Angela Hill. I didn't really like that because I'm a fan of Angela Hill, but
Yeah, man.
it was still a good fight.
It's
It was still a good
it's
fight,
tough.
And like you said, Song Yudong, funniest name in the business, versus Casey King, and he was there and he killed it. So phenomenal night overall. I thought, I didn't think the main card disappointed. I think you don't have the star power. Yeah, see, it was favoritism.
There you
That's why
go.
you gave it a B.
There you go.
Or that's why you said it disappointed because Lewis lost. You're right. If Lewis showed up, it would have been an A for sure. I think that's everybody's point because everybody wants to see Derek Lewis win, man. But phenomenal card overall. We actually don't have any UFC this weekend. Actually, I want to get to one thing real quick. What was your favorite finish of the card?
My favorite finish, it has to be that Darce, man.
Yeah,
I love the flying knee from Cat, but that Darce, man, that Darce was just nasty on a specialist on the ground. That has to be my favorite finish.
yeah, I'm right there with you, man. That was, I love it. I love it overall. Great stuff. So, no UFC card this weekend. I don't mind him losing, but throw a punch. Fuck yeah, for real, man. Throw a goddamn punch. Just throw
Yeah, he,
something.
he looked weird. He looked like he knew there was one path to victory. Everyone in the stadium knew, so he was just like, "Well, it worked against Blade. Let's see if it works against this guy." And Gone is just a different level, man. A different
Yeah,
level
man.
intellectually, a different level physically, technically. I think I might get cold takes for this one day, but he has the potential to be the greatest heavyweight of all time because he's just so unique in that division. We've never seen anything like that. He's what I expect John Jones to look like at heavyweight. You know what I mean? That style, the technique. He could be one of the best of all time in that division for sure.
I'm right there with you. Good point, Alex. But I'm right there with you, man. Like you said, it could definitely get cold take. He can get knocked the fuck out by Francis Ngannou. We can never see him again, right? He can get knocked into next week. Um, but at the end of the day, he has the skill set to where you can see him becoming legendary. You can see him staying here for a long time. Maybe he doesn't win. Win a championship or hold it for a long time. Maybe he just gets the most wins in heavyweight history, right? Maybe he does something like that. Great fight overall there. This week, like I said, we don't have UFC. But for anybody that's looking for fights, make sure you watch the PFL playoffs. They're going to have the welterweights and lightweights. It's a tournament format. So they have it's the first round for the welterweights and the lightweights. So four guys. Winner of the four-man tournament gets $1 million, and that's crowned the champion. So that's going to be a fun. Bellator 264 is on the same night. I believe it's the 13th. Yeah, August 13th. So that's this Thursday or Friday. So this Friday. Today's Tuesday. Wow, I thought it was Monday. So I thought so. It'll be August 13th. Both of these fights will be Mousasi versus Salter. That's not as fun of a card, but you're gonna have a couple of Dagestanis on there that you're going to want to keep your eyes on with some good records. So some decent fights there. And I got you, Alex. Appreciate you chiming in the comments as well, bro. You keep this shit fun. So I appreciate you joining here. But as far as UFC goes, next weekend is when we're gonna have a banger of a fight, and the card overall is pretty thin. I mean, you have Clay Guida as your co-main event, so kind of say that's you can kind of see, it is almost Friday, so we're gonna have a couple fights coming up as well. I'm excited for that. Let's get to that main event though, man. Kelvin Gastelum versus Jared Cannonier. This is a good fight. I love middleweight. It's one of my favorite
100%.
divisions. You got a lot of great fighters there. Kelvin Gastelum making losing against Robert Whitaker, but in his last couple of fights before that, showing that he's able to use his ground game against Ian Heinisch, get the fight on the ground.
Yeah.
So he's been a little bit of back and forth fighter since he lost to Adesanya. He had that 3-fight skid where he got, bumped down, got his win, got a win back against Ian Heinisch, and then lost against Robert Whitaker trying to fill in, on short
Yeah.
notice for, the guy who's always drunk, Paulo Costa. So, so now we have Gastelum taking on Jared Cannonier. And Cannonier, on the other hand, was almost going to fight Adesanya for the belt, but he lost to Rob. So now he's in a position of where, get one fight back. Maybe you're one fight away from that championship shot. How do you feel like this one goes down?
Man, can we point out real quick how he has been, for some weird reason, avoiding Rob for like a year and a half? He always says, oh no, Cannonier's the best. The next guy, he needs to win. And then he didn't get it. Till's the next guy, he needs to win. He didn't get it. And they both lost to the same guy, Robert Whitaker. I can't wait for that fight. So back to this. Cannonier versus Gastelum. Gastelum, like you just mentioned, he has a lot of talent. I just think he should be a 170-pound fighter. He needs to put down the whatever, the Doritos, the tacos,
the bread, the soda.
Yes,
the booty.
he has
I don't know what he's eating.
he has that talent, and to be 170, he used to be 170. He couldn't make the weight. He could be a top 5, top 3 guy there. Against Cannonier, I like his style, his durability. I think Cannonier would have put up a better fight against Whitaker if it wasn't for the fact that I think he broke his arm in the first round, blocking one of those leg kicks, one of those high kicks from Whitaker. We've seen Cannonier; he's a monster. He's a savage. Gastelum is the thickest guy on the roster, man.
OSP has a word to say about that.
Oh, you got me there, man. And Cannonier used to be a thick boy himself until
he did.
If Cannonier used to be a heavyweight, now he's 180, 185. You can't tell me he's freaking 5'9" Kelvin Gastelum cannot be a 170-pound fighter. He's so talented. He's so good. Please cut the weight. Anyway, I like Jared Cannonier in this matchup. I think he's going to be a little too much to handle. I think I'm pretty sure he has the reach advantage, which I'm one of those guys. That's the first thing I look at, reach advantages. Look at this. Look at this transformation, man. And he was knocking guys out at heavyweight, too. Like, it wasn't like he was a scrub or something. He's
maxed middleweight with heavyweight power.
100%, man. I want Kelvin Gastelum. I like Kelvin Gastelum. He's a personable person. He's a nice guy. He's one of those guys that you just want to win. But I don't know if he can handle Whitaker. Cannonier. I don't know if he can. I think Cannonier's gonna keep his spot in that top 5.
Yeah, man. And Cannonier likes to use those healing crystals as well. And hey, I'm a big fan of that shit too. You got to keep them spirits clean, boy. You can't have those dirty energies around you. Alex M saying Herbalife works. Probably, man. He needs to get in that. Oh, is that what he's? I'm not sure. Is he sponsored by Herbalife?
Is that what he did?
Shit, if it fuck.
It's got to be working out.
Yeah, you're gonna get Gastelum down to 145 with Herbalife with the way it's going now. We're gonna have featherweight Gastelum fighting.
Gastelum gonna look like Volk out there, bro.
Oh, right, that's a good point as well. That Volkov was another guy who was like 200 something pounds playing rugby. He went down. Alex saying his jokes. I was curious. I was like, damn, did Cannonier was he sponsored by Herbalife? Interesting. But I feel like Gastelum has a path to victory in here. The takedowns. If he's able to get Cannonier on his back, keep him on his back foot, not allow him to get pressure going, I think that's his path to victory. But is he going to be able to do that for 5 rounds? Remember, this is a 5-round fight. It's hard for me to see that because Cannonier is one of these guys, if he touches you, it's really dangerous because he's, like we said, he's knocked out heavyweights. There's a man that has heavyweight power at middleweight. It's going to be really tough for you to take down a guy that's used to a heavyweight trying to take you down. That's a different type of species and that's a different type of strength. And like his muscle density is probably on another type of level. So I have a really hard time picking Gastelum in his fight. Like I said, there is a path for him as well. Take him down and hold that man down to the ground and pound. Work your way that way. But I think Gastelum, or I think Cannonier, is a little too explosive for this fight. I think the fireworks are going to explode, and I think Cannonier gets it done.
Definitely, man. I think he gets it done. I think he might get a finish before by the third or fourth round.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But Gastelum's one of those guys who are it's also durable as fuck. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he'll
I can
stay
see that.
there. Izzy put him down on his ass a couple times in that fight, and he came back and he didn't take the knockout. Right? He ended up getting the decision, and it was a loss, but he was still there. Any final thoughts on anything we talked about today, man?
Man, I can't wait. I can't wait for Francis versus Gane. I can't wait for John Jones to finally make his appearance at heavyweight, even if it's not a title shot, man. A title eliminator. Go against Stipe, go against Lewis. Just go in there, Go in there and show you're still the GOAT, the number one pound for pound. Show that you deserve that designation, man. I'm happy he's taking supposedly the right way. He's getting the weight back. No, not the weight back. He's building up that weight. He has NFL brothers. Like they know how to train. They're all heavier than him. So he has the crew. He has the right people around him to make it happen. If he could keep his mind focused, put his head in the game, I'm dying to see John Jones. I'm dying to see John Jones. I can't. I just imagine a John Jones versus Francis Ngannou for the belt.
Mm,
You know,
that's
like
probably one of the biggest fights of all time.
And I'm scared they're gonna miss that opportunity. Whether they're not offering him enough money, I don't know if it's true or not. They have a tendency not to do that. Dana White does, but he just needs to get his ass in the ring, man, in the octagon, should I say? That's my parting thought on this. Believe it or not, he wasn't even a topic on this stream.
I agree with you, man. I'm right there with you. I want to get to this comment before we close out real quick. I think Jones can do it. Heavyweights are usually a little bit older. That's true. So he can probably keep that power a little bit more. To Andy's point, it just slipped my mind. Chandler Jones is a brother. He has, was it two brothers? Byron Jones
He
as
had
well.
he had Arthur Jones, his brother. He was on the Baltimore Ravens squad that won Super Bowl 2012. He's not in the league anymore, but Chandler still is, and Chandler's a beast. I think he's
Yeah.
265 himself or something like that.
So I mean, like what Alex M is saying, with all the experience and confidence, he can come in and wreak havoc here at heavyweight, man. And I'm right there with you. I think that's absolutely the fight to make. You have to see John Jones versus Francis Ngannou. I hope Francis Ngannou beats Cyril Gane because I don't like the interim championship BS. I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah,
Get rid of
I,
all these
I
two.
don't like what they did to him right there, man.
Like it's the whole reason that I wasn't drawn into boxing right away because you have so many titles for each weight division. You don't want to become somewhere where you're confused of who's the champion, who's not the champion. That's just never a good brand. When it comes to sports, you're not nobody's gonna go out here and say last year that Phoenix won the championship, right? Phoenix, we're the Western Conference champions, so we're also a champion as well, right? We're the interim
Yeah, no one
champions.
says that.
But nobody says that. Keep one championship or for each weight class. Keep it that way. Like you said, I hope John Jones fights. I would love to see that. Give my boy Jose Aldo a fight against TJ Dillashaw. Let him see what he's able to do. Get my boy Vicente Luque that next title shot against Usman. Man, prove everybody wrong. I don't care what everybody says. Everybody says Usman's going to ground his ass. I think Vicente Luque is going to shock the world. I'm right there on the Vicente Luque hype train. I love that man. And yeah, dude, that's my closing thoughts right there. I hope we have some good fights coming up this weekend. We'll get you guys covered again next week before that big fight, obviously, Cannonier versus Gastelum. So we'll break that down to you a little bit more in detail, as well as the rest of the card. Andy will be here as next time, as well as myself. So I want to appreciate everybody, my boy in the comments, Alex M, and also who joined us earlier, Elder Assassin, for joining us. Appreciate you guys joining us, and thanks for joining Walkouts and Knockouts, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm Johnathan. We got Andy, and we'll see you guys next week.